Ladies and gentlemen, you will now bear witness auditorially and sonically to Geoff and Didi. These ideas will rock your body right. So bad.
All right. Here we are at episode 1, or if you will, the pilot episode of Geoff and Didi Podcast.
I'm a bigger fan of pilot episode.
Pilot
like
episode?
That.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Makes it sound fancy, like, you know, we're licensed or something. I like that idea.
Yes. Well,
you're licensed, you're legitimate, right?
I feel like we have creative license.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
A license to kill. Or better yet, a license to thrill.
News stories, Didi.
News stories right now. We have the missing jet
Yes.
that was flying in Malaysia, the Malaysian airliner. They're thinking that there might be a criminal element to it.
Yes.
That it flew out over the South China Sea and then diverted back toward land and then disappeared. It flew for somewhere around 7 hours and then all of a sudden disappeared.
Yes. So the CNN headline reads, Malaysian jet's disappearance a, quote, deliberate action, Prime Minister says.
Okay. Deliberately bad or deliberately good? I mean, what do we know about that?
Well, not an accident, I think is the implication.
Uh-huh. There was a volitional act.
Well, now you have a legal background.
Somewhat.
If somebody hijacked the jet,
Uh-huh.
what kind of laws would they be breaking if it were the United States?
Well, they would probably be committing the act of kidnapping, just collectively kidnapping whoever is on the plane. It would also be in violation of, I don't know what convention they would be in violation of. They're not in violation of the Patriot Act by any means, but they would be violating international law, certainly.
Certainly.
Mm-hmm. That goes without saying.
So, what do you think happened on the Crimea, or the Malaysian jet disappearance? What do you think?
Well, I think that it is a combination of confusion and delusion.
Confusion and delusion.
Yes. Whoever took the plane, whoever decided to board the plane and
abscond with it
in a trespassory taking.
Yes.
Whoever did that was confused about where they wanted to go,
right, and
under delusions of grandeur, like they're doing something to serve society or better their cause, like
right,
a jihad, if you will.
Okay.
That is a classic example of a religious cause or a philosophical cause, which would cause a person to do something that they may not do otherwise.
You think that's most likely the case?
I think so. I think it could be terrorism. It could also just be an act of hate.
Really?
Yeah.
Just kind of an isolated act of hate.
Haters are going to hate.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, well.
I didn't even take that into the equation.
Well, that's why we put our minds together. There's different perspectives.
It's so important.
Speaking of different perspectives, I was thinking about this the other day when I was masturbating. But what's the point of having diametrically opposed political parties? I mean, do we really need to have that?
What's the point?
A Democrat and a Republican. Why do we need that? Thomas Jefferson would say a diversity of ideas, but he never said anything about meeting in the middle. He just said freedom for freedom's sake, two different sides, have that and have debate.
Well, and forgive my ignorance, but in Jefferson's day, there weren't Democrats and Republicans. There were...
No, he was, but he was advocating a two-party system.
Right. I mean, I understand a multi-party system. I do. I understand, obviously, that different people have different political ideas. It actually never made sense to me that, I mean, gun control, abortion, the death penalty, I don't know, all your other standard kind of
hot button
issues. It always seemed kind of it did always seem a little weird to me. It's like why would you, you know what I mean? Why would you agree? What does one have to do with the other? Like if I'm like pro-gun or whatever that, position would be, why am I also anti-abortion? Like, couldn't somebody be, I mean, obviously they can, but couldn't somebody be, have this political view on this topic and this one on this topic? And what about those people? Do they just, they don't belong to one of the two parties, or are you supposed to adopt the idea of your parties to kind of, because of the collective bargaining or the strength in numbers? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that could be essentially a flaw of the two-party system or the multi-party system, is that even if you disagree with abortion, but you side with, say, social welfare, you're a Democrat, essentially.
Right.
Now, if you fall outside of that in some way, you are no longer a Democrat. You are no longer a Republican. So your ideas have to fit the party rather than the party fitting your ideas.
Yeah.
So why don't we just have one party? What would that party be titled? What would its name be?
Well,
I guess we have to set the parameters of what are the ideas,
what their beliefs. Yeah. Well, it actually kind of makes sense that they would be the Grand Old Party.
The Grand Old Party?
Even though that's already one of the two parties.
For those of you who don't know anything, that would be the Republican Party, the Grand Old Party.
That's my understanding, yeah. That the two are indistinguishable. I don't know if it's a subset or something. But, yeah, right. I mean, that makes sense, the Grand Old Party. But, I don't know. I mean, not to belabor a point, but of course, or be cliche, but, of course, Hitler rose to power in a system where there were a multitude of political parties. I mean, there were a number of socialist parties, communist parties, whatever the hell else there was at the time, you know what I mean? And then essentially there was only, when he was done consolidating power, there was pretty much one party and everybody belonged to it, which is really weird.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what you're getting at is that one-party rule would not occur unless there were multiple parties and different ideas bouncing off of each other and contending with each other that would breed something like fascism.
Right.
And it comes out of that.
And that's kind of, I mean, I don't really know how fascism is defined. I got into a big argument with my brother about that recently, kind of, but, and I don't think necessarily anybody really knows how fascism is defined. I think it tends, in this day and age, it's name calling. It's not a definitive group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Crimea right now, the Russians are saying, well, they're nationalist fascists is who we're opposing. And then, of course, the ethnic Ukrainians or whatever, my understanding is that they're saying, no, they're not here, or they are, but there's a very small group, and it's not really that big of a deal. But again, I mean, fascist, like, I'm not aware of anybody deliberately practicing fascism, or at least nobody's voting for fascism, I guess, is the, and again, it's a term without a definition, I think. Or at least far too loose a definition.
Yeah.
For that matter, and this is jumping topics, but I say the same thing about racism or sexism, right?
It's an idea without a definition.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? You take the word race, which we loosely understand. I mean, you know what I mean? People in academia will debate if it exists or not, you know what I mean? But if we say that race means what more or less we think it means, which is kind of a division of ethnicities or whatever, genetic or whatever, if race means what it means, then what in the hell does it mean to add ISM to the end of it?
Well, I guess you need a label so you can have a discussion about it. Racism, idealism, schism. No,
right.
But
you see what I mean, though, is, I mean, you've just added a suffix to a word, and it's not particularly clear what the word, what that new word means, because different people will tell you different things. I mean, generally, I think, we know that someone who says, I don't want, a black person in my neighborhood is practicing racism.
Yeah, prejudice, racism, whatever you want to call it.
But then, but there will be people who tell you that, you don't have to say anything like that to be practicing racism. And there'll be people who tell you that only certain groups of people are capable of racism because they'll, in my opinion, kind of twist the understanding of the word so that only, Western white people are capable of racism.
Who's saying that?
It's a common thing, man. An obvious one might be Louis Farrakhan or something, but just, you know what I mean? But not radicals either, or not total radicals. I mean, there's a pretty decent, collection of people. I mean, I had a college professor who kind of tried to make that case, but essentially
what happened there?
It scarred me for life.
Yeah.
But essentially the idea is that, well, I have a friend, my brother, in fact, recently was talking to somebody who was Hispanic or some kind of I don't know specifically if he was like a second generation Mexican American or what, but anyways, he was not what we call a white person or whatever.
Yeah.
And he said something, and my brother said, well, that's racism, not in an accusatory way, but I think more in a discussional sense. And the guy honestly responded, not jokingly, but said, no, that doesn't apply to me. I'm Mexican, or I'm Hispanic.
Oh. Wow, really?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised this is a new concept for you. But and there are people who believe that. It's fairly common. It's not super fringe or anything. But they make the argument that, like, to truly be racist, you have to be in a position of power so that you can oppress people because
That's absurd.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
I mean, you don't have to be in a position of power to not like someone because of their race.
Well, and that's the thing. And that's why I say that the word is ill-defined, Because if it's, I don't know. Because furthermore, I think is not liking someone an action?
No.
Because it seems like racism would denote action. It seems like you have to be, to my mind, feeble as it may be, that, you know what I mean, to be racist or to practice racism, you have to take actions. You can't just have thoughts in the few cubic centimeters inside your head. It has to be overt. It has to be outward. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. It's kind
of like the idea of a crime. You don't commit a crime when you think about committing a
crime, right? If you're right, or sexism is an easy one, right? Like if just for a crazy example, if I call AAA because my car broke down and tow truck driver shows up and it's a girl or a woman, and I think to myself, oh shit, she's going to scratch my car.
Yeah.
Right.
Because she's incapable of working with her hands.
Yeah, or she's not cut out for this kind of work, or she's going to be overconfident, or she's going to overcompensate and be too rough or something like that. You know what I mean? Whatever.
Or she's just too banging for the job.
If I jump to that conclusion, right? But I don't do anything. I don't live. You know what I mean? I just do the same thing I would do if a greasy ass dude showed up to tow my car away, right? Like if I just said,
do your thing.
If I just handed the keys and got out of the way and signed the piece of paper on the clipboard or whatever, am I practicing sexism because I had that thought? Is that sexist?
No, I think the idea behind it is that if you hold those beliefs, after a time you might manifest that through some kind of action. You don't have to act every time. Say you're sexist, you don't have to act differently around her in order to be sexist. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I'm saying that after a time, you may start manifesting outward symptoms of someone who actually does think differently of someone because of their sex. You don't have to take an action every time in order to be sexist.
Right.
And I think the idea is the same with racism, or classism, treating someone differently because of their class or their level of wealth. If you don't do it directly, but you hold those thoughts, you may do it sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And that's why you're right. It's a vague definition because it's something that's sort of in a collective subconscious out there in the ether somewhere.
Right.
That we're being precautionary and we're saying to practice racism is to practice internalized judgment of someone.
Yeah. Well, see, and to that point then, and maybe I'm full of shit, but to that...
I don't think so.
To that point, thank you. But to that point, like, since invariably each and every single one of us, rushes to judgment the moment we see somebody else for any number of reasons, gender, ethnicity, appearance, height, weight, dress, what I mean? Since we all instantly snap to some kind of judgment in our heads, and we're all, I think by that definition, I would suspect that we're all racist and sexist people, if you are that, broad about the term. Isn't it kind of a wash? Doesn't it, you know what I mean? It's kind of like saying you're a foodist because you think about and consume food. We
call those people foodies.
Well, it's a different thing because I'm not a foodie, but but you know what I mean. Like you're am I food obsessed because I eat more than once a day? You know what I mean? Like if I'm doing something that's so normal that everybody else does it, is there really a much of a point of giving it a name and having debates about it or whatever? Now. That being said, of course, everyone will point to some, the Ku Klux Klan hanging somebody or an overqualified woman not getting a job or whatever the hell, right? And it's like, well, sure, those are real examples, but what about
everyday life?
What about barring those examples? I mean, it's because of the truth of the matter is we don't encounter lynchings or overt sexist discrimination. You know what I mean? Not tangible. We don't experience those. When it does happen, it's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely.
So why do we have a society of people that runs around evaluating those characteristics in each other, which I think happens. I think certainly happens disproportionately to the amount that it should happen.
I would agree, and I think that's a big problem with academia is that a lot of the debate is stemming from academia, and it's people who they're doing it to get paid as well because it's marketable. The idea of debating about racism or debating about homophobia, debating about the war. War is bad, peace is good. It's good to have a debate about that.
Right.
At the same time, I think it's taken advantage of. Sure. And you're right that there are examples out there of racism and sexism that happen. But why do we debate about those things that happened years and years and years ago? Why are we still debating about slavery? Why would we be debating about slavery now? What's the point?
What is the point? Well, and of course, is there anybody debating that it isn't a bad thing? I mean, is there any serious person who is of the idea that, well, if you think about it, some human beings should own other human beings. You know what I mean? Like, I would submit to you that is not that opinion isn't held by any in any quantity to make it relevant.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. Is that the idea of slavery, just one person being owned by another, it's being analogized to a lot of things that happen today. I don't mean to. Sorry, Dr. West, but Dr. Cornel West likes to talk a lot about how there's still slavery going on out there. There's still, or maybe the idea of human trafficking. A lot of people get moved in and out of countries and are hookers or selling drugs, and
a lot of them are sexy as hell.
Yeah. Oh man.
And that's. Thought I'd add that in there.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to add, and it's good for debate. But I do think that the idea of slavery gets used to make it look like it's, like I said, already being redundant, but that slavery's still out there. Mental slavery.
Well, furthermore, right, no, in terms of like drawing the parallel between, this human trafficking, which is, of course, preposterously despicable. I mean, just beneath contempt, and, the slavery of 200 years ago or whatever, which also disgusting beneath contempt.
Yeah.
The one was thoroughly enforced and state sanctioned, and the other is an underground crime ring. And I don't think, in that regard, I don't think the two have much to do with each other at all. I think that I think it's probably really bad form to compare the two for some reason.
I agree. What's the point of drawing the analogy? Why do we let that pervade through our minds? Because, I don't know. I mean, I don't feel guilty about slavery.
No,
Never
I don't.
have.
Well, I did.
It's a despicable thing.
I did. I went to public school, and they taught me to feel bad about it, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, I got over that.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I wasn't indoctrinated to feel that way.
Right.
But I think that's getting old, straight up and down. Don't even bother.
Well, it is getting old. And well, I'll tell you something. When it comes to that type of thing in white guilt, whatever.
Dub G?
Dub G, right. Yeah. Dub G if you're nasty. Turns out I think that backfired tremendously as far as a social experiment, right? It turns out in society, society is the same way as, on the macro scale. I think it might work like it works on the micro scale, like a family or group of friends or whatever. Honestly, when you have some kind of ugly incident, you might talk about it and address it, but what you really do after that is try to just forget about it and move on.
Yeah.
That's the reality. Like if you're, and not that I'm an example of how to do a relationship right.
Oh, no.
But, you know what I mean? Don't, I mean, if anything, it's one of the things I do wrong is try to, stand on principle and debate something and seek the truth when,
You're a prophet. You're a street prophet.
Well, no, but you know what I mean? Like the expression, I'd rather be happy than right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like when it comes to, when it comes to the slavery and the sins of the fathers, which, notwithstanding the fact that, my direct family line has fuck all to do with slavery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Slaves, descendants of slaves have been in this country far longer than me and my family. But, and so, I don't know if I'm guilty by association or what, but the best thing to do is just move on and not talk about it, Like, and then, the prime example being the N-word, right? The N-word, there's not a single word in the English language, not even a close second, third, fourth, anything.
Yeah.
That has anywhere near the power or the whatever of the N-word.
Yeah.
And making the word taboo only increases that. You know what I mean? Like, the more taboo that word is, the more it is disallowed. And I'm not saying that we should all run around saying it, but how powerful is the word
Cunt?
Or, which is maybe one of the closer
Yeah, that's
ones.
why, yeah.
But yeah, how powerful is the word, how powerful is the word,
Faggot.
Faggot, again, much less.
Much less.
Much less.
Agree.
You still get in
agree.
trouble, blah, blah, blah. But, like, the more taboo a word is, the more of a problem the word is. And the more it's not, like the word shit.
Nobody gives a shit about the word shit.
You know what I'm saying? No,
Right.
I grant you the word shit is not a racial epithet, whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Chink is or whatever.
Chink.
And when's the last time you saw someone reprimanded for cracker or honky or something? You know what I mean?
Nobody's getting reprimanded for saying the word cracker or honky.
No. And I don't know if I honestly don't know if there is, like, if deep down in the African American community there's a racial slur that I haven't heard that's like worse. But like, I don't think there is. And it's just, again, it's not taboo, so it has no power, and it's, anyways, it's you know what I mean? It's kind of like trying to put out a fire with gasoline or something, where it's just like, don't ever speak that word. And it's like, that works, right? Tell people they can't do something. That's one way to put a stop to it.
Well, what about slavery, though?
Exactly. Though that word has so much power because 200 years ago or whatever.
Well, yeah, I guess it has the most history attached to it.
Well, but I'm sure that's not true. I mean, every word in the fucking English language. I mean, frankly, most of the words in the English language are older.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe they don't have the history attached to them, but the entire concept of celebrating diversity. Mm-hmm. One shouldn't necessarily be ashamed of diversity or whatever, but it is a totally mixed message to say, like, hey, that's what makes Americans great is we celebrate diversity.
Well, do we? Do we celebrate diversity? I'm not sure we do.
Well, you have to define terms. What does it mean to celebrate diversity? But, I'll use kind of a blatant example. That's not maybe not fair, whatever, but just to illustrate the point, right? It's like, there's a story about the U.S. soccer team playing Mexico in the United States somewhere, and the U.S. players being booed as they take the field by the overwhelming majority Mexican, American, or whatever crowd. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Now, you know what I mean? There's people that live and work in the United States, but of course aren't from here. Are they? You know what I mean? Not in that particular instance, but these are people that you might say celebrate their diversity, when really what it is they're just holding national ties. You know what I mean? They're just practicing foreign nationalism. You know what I mean? They consider themselves, they feel loyal to a foreign power or whatever, and they're holding tight to their customs and ways, but their customs and ways are foreign. And if, this is the kind of thing, I get in trouble for, but it's like, if it's so great, why'd you leave? Why are you here? Where it's inferior, not as good, or something like that.
When you say it's inferior, not as good, you mean it's something that people project outward? They're saying that you think we are inferior, or our ideals are inferior?
I don't think that, and I don't think that they say it in any kind of real clear way, or whatever. But I think that kind of the mob mentality is, well, there's the what do they call it, reconquista or whatever, kind of like the idea that, hey, this land was stolen from our ancestors, so it's fair for us to return to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, what, like, legalities aside, that's hostile. It's not outwardly super violent or anything like that, but it's like it's not I want to come blend in. And what I'll say about that is, the reason that my suspicion is that the reason that the ethnic peoples that come to this country and assimilate do better, and the ones that kind of stick to their own tend to do worse. In general, I mean, if you can just define that.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, isn't there the argument to be made that this country is still an experiment, the American experiment? So if we have this idea of celebrating diversity, maybe that creates an environment, an atmosphere for people to come to the country and do better. The idea that they are welcome, the idea that they can improve themselves if we all work together, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. I don't think it really is an experiment anymore. I think it's been here long enough that it's safe to say, I mean, we're the world power, have been for 50 years, and I think it's safe to say that I mean, of course, all societies are constantly changing and evolving, but it isn't as if we are truly new in the sense that we were prior to the Civil War or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe I'm speaking from a position of ignorance because I've never lived in a foreign country, but I am saying that there is a certain uniformity of peoples in a foreign country that may be different than what's going on in America. That there's a higher mixture of different races, different religious creeds.
Oh, you mean here than there?
Yes.
Yes.
More so here than there.
Yes. Although this is the reality. For one thing, it was as late as, and I don't know the specifics, but I believe this to be true. I've heard this by scholars or whatever in the subject. But I believe it was as late as the 60s that they did away with like national quotas for, what's it called? Immigrants, right?
Okay.
And the idea being, we are a nation of that's divided this much. There's this many German descent, Irish descent, Italian, Scandinavian, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so as far as people coming in, they're allowed in the same. I was shocked to hear this, but essentially they were allocated entry to the country based on the existing demographics of the country.
Yeah.
So as not to sway the demographic mixture. Mm-hmm. So like that, there was allocations or whatever. Starting as late as the 60s, which is relatively recently, just only slightly before our time.
Yeah.
They did away with that. So that's one thing where you think, you learn in school that we are this nation of diversity, when really it wasn't until the 60s that they opened up that portal or whatever in that sense. But another thing is, people don't come here really, they don't come here because we invite them. They don't come here because they necessarily believe in the idea as much as, and of course I don't know I don't know their mind, but I think they just come here because people from impoverished places come to affluent places. I mean, that's just or even people in middle of the road places come to more affluent places.
Sure.
I think it's just that simple. And of course, individually, I don't begrudge anybody. I mean, if you're some like person who works hard and can't, but still can't feed your family or whatever, you want to make a better life, and so you sneak across the border. I can't hold it against someone who's trying to save the lives and well-being of their family, of course. But we don't have to be bleeding hearts and just, there's people, you go to Seattle and you see flyers about abolish borders. You know what I mean? Like, what I mean? Like there are municipalities, there are boundaries, there are national borders. Those things exist for a reason. They are not intrinsically evil. They are a natural occurring system based on the way people organize themselves. And it's this simple, and this is what people I call bleeding hearts would can never wrap their mind around, or at least won't admit or whatever, is it doesn't work. You cannot have all the people in the shitty places go to the good places. It does not work, because then you'd have shitty places that are essentially empty, and the good places that used to be good are all shitty.
Yeah, sort of like the law of averages. The more shitty people come to one place, the more shitty it becomes.
Right.
And you're right, it just empties out elsewhere. But,
Right.
They eventually go back.
Well, or like in this country, there's an expression, white flight, which is where, white people or WASPs or whomever, they say, okay, well, I'm getting out of this city or this neighborhood or whatever, and I'm going to go up to this gated community or what, you know what I mean? And then they just go someplace new, either to a new built,
Gated community.
yeah, or even like or even basically a new built city, But anyways,
because they're so disgusted by the barbarians they see every day.
well, no, I think but I do think there's legitimate reasons. I think they say, and here's another one. It's like some people are better than other people.
Sure.
Not necessarily draw along ethnic lines or genetic lines, but there are just better people. Not all people are equal. There are good people and there are less good people, and there's even worse than that people.
Yeah.
There's people, we all know this. There's people that, there's some fucking good-looking, intelligent, smart celebrity who knocks on your door with lots of money, and if they knocked on your door, you would feel flattered and honored that they were there and say, please come in.
Yeah, I get that every day.
Yeah, when you go to people's houses.
Yeah.
And they say, "Oh, please come in." But no, then there's people who, whatever, like your friend's cousin or some shit who you don't want. It's like, fuck, that guy's coming over, or that girl and her 2 degenerate ass kids are coming over, or whatever. Like, so, anyways, so to want to live in an affluent neighborhood, or even a good middle class neighborhood. I mean, there's no crime in that whatsoever, and that's part of, what I mean. And of course, it's not totally this simple, but it's also not a ton more complicated than this. And that is that there's people that work harder than others. There's people that delay gratification. There's people that do the right thing instead of the wrong thing. They make the smart decision instead of the dumb decision. They, do more in life, and they don't necessarily, they don't want to own human beings. They don't want to stand on the back of 4 wheels, anything like that.
Yeah.
And if you ask them, they'd be happy if everybody was fucking wealthy. You know what I mean? But if they're not, and they're shitty, and they're entitlement leeches, and they're you know what I mean? They, there's people down the street here who live in an apartment complex, presumably live in an apartment complex.
Yeah.
Who will walk up the street in like a gaggle of like 5 of them pushing a stroller or 2. And one of the women that walks with this group of women, I've been accosted a couple times. Hey, you got any change, mister, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's like,
Do you have a cigarette?
Yeah.
Do you have a crack pipe?
but
Just in general.
Can you, like, you're with a woman, you're with mothers and their children, and you're asking me for loose change, like a poor person, or like a wino or a drug addict or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's bad enough that you do that in the first place, but I think it's a whole other crime that you are doing that in the company of
children
and their mothers. And I think it's reprehensible that the mothers would walk to the store with a woman who would walk up to people at the goddamn gas station and ask them for $1 or $5 or something like that.
Yeah, and it's just kind of the mentality that I am owed something by others. Sort of when someone will just cross the street and there's no crosswalk. They just walk in front of you in your car while you're driving down the street trying to get to work, and they just walk across the street.
Because fuck you.
Because fuck you, basically. Right. And, I see that. I see that happening. Just sort of people that they ask you for change because they don't think that you owe them the change, but they get to ask you that. They deserve to ask you that.
Sure. Well,
because they already get handouts in some way, shape, or form, right? Right.
So why wouldn't, because if someone else gives them something, why shouldn't you? Or certainly, you see like Seattle Avrats or whomever the hell who say, hey, mister, you got any change? And you ignore them or say no, or it doesn't matter how politely you answer them, they'll give you shit about it, too. We've all been that, like, okay, whatever, dude, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, do I deserve abuse? I mean, is this fair?
Actually, to play off that a little bit, I lived up in Capitol Hill for the last couple of years, and there was this QFC right down the street from me, and I would walk there every day and buy like a steak or something, like European shoppers who they just walk down to the corner store and buy one item. And that was me every day, and I would go down there almost 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And there were always at least 20 homeless people standing out in front of the QFC. And one thing that would always drive me insane are homeless people that have animals.
I know. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. It's like you have your pit bull that has various unfamiliar-looking warts on it that don't belong on a domesticated animal, even though you technically could say they're not domesticated. They're wild beasts, roaming the urban landscape, biting people. But I just think, why do you need to have an animal when you can't provide for yourself? Are you going to give food to the animal first, or are you going to give food to yourself?
Oh, you know what? They would tell you they give food to the animal first, and that's that's the most important thing. Well, and also like, well, I still don't care. I still don't approve. And you know what? Since I don't know. I like Adam Carolla's bit about how the person on welfare says, well, he's got the whole shtick where, the person on welfare says, well, you can't tell me what to do. And he says, yes, I can, because you know what? I'm your boss. Your paycheck comes from me. And it's hyperbole, but it's funny and it's true, right? Because it's like, there's a logic to that, right? Like if you're receiving on the short term or long term, you're receiving entitlements, you're getting money that you did not earn Although you could you could say that you're entitled to it for belonging to the civil society or whatever. But, you are getting a paycheck instead of a check from an employer. Now, if your employer writes you a check and they say, hey, we need you to X, Y, Z, or do your job more, or, stay late or be on time, or what, you know what I mean? There's a vast number of requests an employer can make on you that are totally reasonable, and plenty of them that aren't totally reasonable, but you do it anyways because they're the one writing your check.
Yes.
So what, you know what I mean? But if you get your check from the government, then you have no boss, and fuck you. you know?
Yeah. You kind of get to do what you want.
Right. Well, and it's like, does it make sense that the person who isn't working for their money should be more independent than the person that does work for their money?
Technically, they should be subject to the government. They should be subject to the whims of the government. You and I have had that conversation before, that there needs to be more regulation of entitlements. If we're going to have entitlements, there needs to be per capita spending. There needs to be a limit on what you spend money on. But the problem, you and I agreed on that too, is that the problem you have there is bigger government, even bigger government, looking after the people we're giving money to and requiring them to spend money in a certain way. But in my opinion, it's better.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I don't think it would necessarily require bigger government. I think it could be done in some cases it could be a reduction of government, because, like food stamps. I mean, I love again, Adam Carolla's point on food stamps, where he says there's a gazillion people on food stamps or whatever. If they went away tomorrow, how many would starve? 1, 13. You know what I mean? Like, how many people would starve to death if there was no food stamps? How many people would be in the streets, withering away, wasting away? And you ask yourself, and the answer is virtually none. Virtually none. You know what I mean? I mean, we will make an exception for the paraplegic person who legitimately has no family or friends and is like a shut-in. You know what I mean? Like, of course, even they don't have the ability to go to the store and get food, or whatever. So, I mean, they're already dependent on people to help them. But I mean, somebody like that, it's like, fair enough. You know what I mean? Like someone who just actually has a problem getting top ramen from their hand into their mouth or whatever.
Yeah.
Fair enough, them, okay? But everybody else.
The drug addicts.
Well, the people sitting at home playing video games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have to be a criminal. The person who's, hell, you get food stamps in this country. Like, you can have a job and get food stamps. I mean, you can have, I don't know exactly what the threshold is, but I don't think it's super low.
It's not strict, I don't think.
I'm sure you can make what I would call a livable wage. People, you know what I mean? People say, you can't live on that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the facts behind it. I'm just living my life like any good American.
That's what I'm saying, man. I'm not going to let facts, information.
Oh,
I'm not going to let these things. Yeah.
Your thoughts ain't my thoughts.
Your thoughts ain't my thoughts. Facts and information. It's like I'm doing the Heisman Trophy pose.
Stop.
Like boom. Just. I don't know what you would call that. Stiff arming.
Yeah,
stiff arming.
exactly.
The facts.
Stiff arming.
Yeah. The facts and information. Just getting through to the end zone.
Yeah, that's one thing I like about Stephen Colbert is the idea of going with your gut.
Going with your gut.
And he's been doing that for, I don't know, God knows how long, years and years and years. Yeah. But it's still hilarious.
It's probably been 10 years now, hasn't it?
Oh, man. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? It's 2014 now?
2014.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure he started by 2004 or sooner, right?
Well, the Daily Show, Jon Stewart, that was happening. That was going on during 9/11.
And before, right?
Yeah.
Well, they used to have a different host, too.
The MTV show. I remember when he had his show on
no,
MTV.
not Jon Stewart, but the Daily Show had a different host. Craig Kilborn, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Again, facts.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, let me give you one about pit bulls, because you're talking about pit bulls.
Yeah. Great animals, right?
No. Bred killers.
Bred killer.
Bred killers, yes. Everybody, this is classic. I cannot stand sensationalism. Maybe it sounds like that isn't true, but it is. I want intelligent, balanced arguments. I want reason. you know, and reasonability or whatever.
Give me reason.
Exactly.
For those of you who don't know, that's from the FIFA World Cup 2012. Go check it out because
Excellent. game.
vuvuzelas, beautiful, beautiful instrument.
The vuvuzela.
Much, almost akin to the
Straight up-
bagpipe. Akin to the
Oh,
bagpipe in terms
better.
of its greatness.
Well, it's from the mother of all music, you know, at Africa, where music began.
Yes, where it began and where it will end.
That's another one. So, you know, you learn in school that music comes from Africa.
Yeah.
Right. And music comes from Africa. You know, if what we know is true and that man comes from Africa, then yes, music comes from Africa. Right. I mean, if the first man was there, then that's where the music came from. I don't know. If you can like quantify that or qualify where music came from. You know what I mean? But, like, you know, hitting sticks on a log, you know, like, is that
Is
if
that
that's
music?
If that's music,
Yeah.
then yes, you know what I mean?
Well, maybe perhaps rhythm. Rhythm comes before, I don't want to say sound. That's ridiculous. But rhythm does
Tone.
perhaps come before melody, I think.
Well,
The
it's
idea-
certainly easier to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, ask anybody who makes music, you know.
Uh-huh. In terms of your resources, yes, rhythm would come before melody. Of course, I suppose you could sing while you hit some sticks on rocks.
Well, hell, I mean, we've all heard Native American music, right?
Hi-ya. Like, well,
Well, I mean, but that's seriously it. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty close to what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? I remember seeing a school program, and it was not, you know, it wasn't some sneaky agents of the government putting it on, or you know, some kind of fascist. It was some tribal members from wherever locally. I don't know if they were, you know, of the Nez Perce or Puyallup or whatever, but they're beating on a drum. They're all in a circle beating on a drum. And it didn't look bad. It didn't sound good to my sense of what music's supposed to sound like. But I could dig that they were doing. I mean, what kind of weirded me out was it's like, do they know this song? Because it doesn't sound like a song. It sounds like them going, hi!
yeah.
You know, but they also were, they seemed to be in rhythm and stuff. I mean, they were,
Yeah.
granted, the rhythm was,
Yeah.
so I mean, they had that, but like, is it, you know, I don't understand. Is it a jam session that they're just kind of riffing, or is it like, oh, here's an old one? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Is
It's my
it like-
party. I can cry if I want to.
Right. If it's some old grandma.
Yeah.
So, or some old, you know, Indian gal with the baby backpacks thing going on.
Yeah.
Who goes, oh, it's that one.
I remember. I went to my first prom.
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's
That
like
was the
Grandpa
song.
used to sing when
Yeah. Yeah.
when the rains came.
Have you ever been to an Indian reservation? And I'm not talking the Puyallup Indian Reservation. I'm just talking about Lake Quinault Indian Reservation, just out there in the middle of nowhere, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like for you? I've been out to the Macaw Indian Reservation, and I just went through there, and actually they were having a celebration that day.
Oh, really?
And they were doing various different dances, and the songs that you were basically singing just now.
I mean,
Very
I'm not exaggerating.
No, you're not exaggerating.
That's what they sound like.
What I actually thought was really cool were their tribal attire, like their outfits.
Yeah.
Vibrant colors,
Yeah.
and I like that.
It
more
would,
than-
yeah, and I don't know, especially if they're made in the old way, if they're made, you know, without the use of modern methods.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
then that's really cool, for sure. I remember reading that the freaking Nez Perce, good old Pacific Northwest history, useless class. I mean, seriously, like we didn't
Yeah.
have. I don't remember world history or even really American history,
Yeah.
but I remember Pacific Northwest history because I think we had more of that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
It was also earlier when I was paying more attention, but I'm not totally convinced that it's useful or important to know anything about like these 3 or 4 states.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Well, I don't know. I think it's good to know the background of the people that lived in this area. I mean,
Well,
there are
no,
differences.
you're right,
There's
you're right.
differences between people, right?
yeah. Well, yeah. Although that kind of goes to my point about celebrating diversity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is it really advantageous for us to be different than the citizens of the Northeast?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's not go off on that kick again. We could talk about diversity till the cows come home. I mean, geez.
Come on.
Yeah.
Moo.
Give me more of that moo is all I'm saying. Dude, I think I recently discovered that I'm lactose intolerant.
We went to breakfast. Well, lunch or for you, breakfast for me.
Yeah.
This morning.
Uh-huh.
With Hardcore Nasty, colleague of ours.
Uh-huh.
And for the first time, you asked for non-dairy creamer.
Uh-huh.
To which they said no.
They said no.
And weren't apologetic or anything. They just said no.
Well,
I don't have that.
I don't care. I mean, they don't have to apologize to me for not having non-dairy creamer.
Yeah.
At the same time, I wasn't impressed with our waitress today, but that's a whole different thing.
That's a whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's real familiar. You know, she's like, she feels comfortable being herself around you.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is, you know, I mean, I don't go there to have a 5-star dining experience, but yeah, I know what you mean. Mm. Non-dairy creamer, which is, I think, an inferior product, you know, than to dairy creamer.
Oh, it is.
But
normal half and half tastes better.
But is that why you asked for it?
Yeah, that's exactly why I asked for it. I don't ask for it for taste. I asked for it because...
Well, I thought perhaps some kind of health reason.
No. I mean, I've got non-dairy creamer in the fridge right now. There's non-dairy creamer in this Starbucks Americano I'm drinking. Product placement!
Our sponsor.
But, no, I mean, non-dairy creamer tastes like diet. You know, it's like sugar-free. It's like Diet Coke. It tastes sort of artificial.
Yeah.
But it's better than...
It tastes like your body doesn't want it.
Yeah. It's just, I'd rather have that than just that curdling in my stomach region. Region.
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
Well, none. Yeah.
Only recently, but you know what? It's part of getting older. But at the same time, there are a lot of imagined health problems out there. A lot. Just gluten intolerance, wheat intolerance, lactose intolerance, which I think is very real. I think lactose intolerance is real.
No, I think so too.
Because if I eat an egg or drink some half and half, I get the farts, man.
Right. Eggs not lactose though.
Eggs dairy.
Right.
Yeah. I think I have a dairy issue. I have an issue with dairy.
You're intolerant of things from the dairy.
Yes.
What about the farmer's daughter?
Oh, no. No, that's a whole different can of worms.
I got a peek.
Yeah.
All right, and we're back.
So I was at the gym the other day.
Yes.
Pumping iron, getting bigger, and improving my physique to the nth degree. I like to run. I like to lift. I like to get up in that spliff. I'm kidding about that. I'm kidding about that part. This is a drug-free zone, believe it or not. But, yeah, and I go to the gym by myself.
Yeah,
I have no issues with that, no regrets about
going
to the gym.
How often would you say you go?
Every other day.
Okay,
Every other day.
Okay.
I'm a creature of routine, creature of habit. I like getting up in the morning and having a goal other than work. Work is later, but this is a goal for myself. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like, I guess, the idea behind working out. I don't know what. But anyways, I go there and I run, and it's very relaxing in the morning. But I do notice this new gym rat culture of people who show up and make noise. They just show up so they can go, like make noises.
Nobody really does that.
Oh, I swear to God.
So
they're doing it while they lift.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But it's after they lift and they throw down their barbell or dumbbell or whatever, and they're just walking around the gym like gorillas making noise.
Really?
And it could be something biological. It could be impressing whatever girl is there.
Oh, no. Well, I'm sure that's a part of it. Right.
But
or even impressing other dudes in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
even if they're
intimidating, maybe.
Well, right. Or just impressing upon them their superiority or their alpha status or something, maybe.
Yeah. And I just the thing that I dislike about the gym is that every day I am smothered with horrible techno music.
Ooh,
like the new pop music, which is techno and auto-tune molded together into what is pop music, melodies over techno.
Is that what's?
Oh man,
I feel ignorant, but that's what's going on right now.
That's what's going on right now, and I can only speak from someone who goes to other places where younger people are, and that's creepy. But I'll
Well,
no,
you're not an old man by a stretch of imagination.
Yeah, but there are younger people than I am at this gym, a large amount of them.
Right.
And I'm not talking about 10-year-olds.
No, I know. Early 20s.
Early 20s,
Yeah.
even, yeah.
It's kind of, if I'll interject just to say that it's nuts to me to think of people who are really young working out because, people who are really young don't really need to work out. Like they're just naturally in shape. But anyways.
They can do a couple push-ups and develop muscles from that.
Oh yeah, they don't have their metabolism. They don't have to lose weight because they're But it's fun. You see around our neighborhood, you see good-looking 19-year-old or God knows high school girls, whatever, like jogging, and it's like, fuck, are you jogging? You know what I mean? Just trying to burn off those calories from that fruit salad you had last week or something. Anyway.
Yeah. The fruit salad, the Big Mac. But no, just going to a gym and seeing the new thing. It's called CrossFit. I don't know if people out there, if you don't know anything, you might not know what CrossFit is. But it's basically like strongman competitions. They've turned that into the commonplace method of working out.
Yeah.
Lifting tires and holding
Rope.
chains, holding chains with weights at the end of them and walking around in a circle, but doing squats because you're trying to improve your lower body. You have like chains across your torso.
Oh, don't neglect the lower body.
No. The body cannot live without the mind.
I know what you're talking about.
No, it's absurd. It's absurd, and it's marketing. It's obviously marketable.
Oh,
it's
man.
the whole UFC culture, mixed martial arts, fighting without gloves on, and sort of the barbaric nature of it, and it's sort of transferred over into working out and just generally improving your physique. It has to be done. It's like grassroots exercise.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no. Well, it's not grassroots. I mean, it's just the latest trend, right? The latest fad. Yeah. Like diets too, right?
Yeah.
The South Beach diet or the whatever. Not that I know anything about diets, other than that they have different names and they all come along. Mm-hmm. And once in a while, you hear. I actually, if I may, I actually went to the Surgeon General's website or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
And looked up, for the first time in my life, I Googled dieting.
Yeah.
Not that I need a diet, but you never know. I might put on some weight someday.
Yeah.
And I want to be prepared.
Yeah.
And so so I did that, and run into the Surgeon General who doesn't have any skin in the game. He's got nothing to sell you. One of his jobs is to keep the country fit. Mm-hmm. So he only, his only interest is giving you authentically good advice. And of course I would imagine outstandingly qualified because of the office he's attained,
Yeah.
Basically.
You don't get to the SG for doing nothing.
No, the most important physician in the land or whatever,
Yeah.
But anyways, and it was, he said, the article or the department that he oversees, whatever, basically says dieting, quote unquote, dieting is bullshit. Like there is only eating healthy. There is no this kind of diet to lose weight is not. None of that's logical or good. You know what I mean? Like it's all bad for you. To essentially to not eat enough food. You have to eat enough food to satisfy your body, or it's bad for you. Mm-hmm. Essentially, you just have to eat the right food at the right amounts and whatever. Mm-hmm. Which is that makes a tremendous amount of sense.
Oh yeah, I can get behind that.
And it's because of course you can't not eat. Mm-hmm. That's an eating disorder. You can't not eat. Now, of course, overeating is one thing, but you can't not eat. And the point being that the basic nutritional facts haven't changed for God knows how long.
Yeah.
What changes is the commercial aspect of dieting, which is new book, new diet tools, devices. Mm-hmm. Remember fucking Richard Simmons sweating to the oldies, and he had he had infomercials with these cards that you take out of this side of the wallet and you put in this side of the wallet after all that. The pre-digital age. Anyway.
Yeah.
And workout, same thing, right? Once upon a time, before our time, there was something called jazzercise.
Yeah.
Now
there's Zumba. Zumba, which I really don't know what that is. I think it's jazzercise. It's just dancing and prancing and probably a little bit of romancing.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Probably some drinking and some fighting. You know that joke?
No, I don't.
This is the guy says goes to the party. He says what kind of party? He says there's going to be dancing, drinking, some lovemaking, even and probably some fighting. And the guy says, "Well, I can get behind that. Who's going to be there?" And he says, "Just you and me."
I like that one.
My grandpa told me that one. Only one dude was Australian was the joke. So he goes, "Who's going to be there? You and me, mate." Anyway.
That's funny on many different levels.
Oh,
yeah.
Homosexuals, I mean, forceful homosexual rapists. Mm-hmm. Come on.
Yeah.
Is there a more fertile ground for comedy? Anyways, you were saying, what about this culture? These guys are yelling like a bunch of fucktards or what?
Yeah, they're yelling like fucktards. They're yelling like absolute morons. And it disturbs my mentality while I work out. I just want to run in a straight line on a treadmill and maybe watch some basketball or something.
Yeah.
And these guys are yelling so loud that I can't really enjoy myself. But
is it kind of scary? It's kind of triggering your animalistic, like, what the fuck sense?
Yeah,
like that sense of, like, I'm uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm, makes me jump. And granted, I'm availing myself to it by going to a gym.
Well, but you go to a gym to work out. That's legitimate. I mean, you're not. It's not like you're going to Odyssey 1 or Chuck E. Cheese, where there's a bunch of children and then complaining that children are acting strange.
Yeah,
you're going to a gymnasium.
A gymnasium, a place of fitness, a place of physical
health,
fitness.
physical well-being.
Yeah, but I mean, do we have a right not to be disturbed and not to be bothered by others?
We do to a reasonable degree.
Maybe in our homes.
Well, no, we do it when we're out, too. I mean, you go to a restaurant, okay, and it's like, you go to a restaurant and you hear forks and plates kind of clanking and glasses clanking or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's onomatopoeia, by the way. But you don't have a reasonable right to complain about that. It's like, well, everyone's clanking glasses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you hear, like, sizzling in the kitchen. That's not, But the crying baby, maybe, or something like that, or maybe a couple that's kind of having a fight, or a group of drunken rowdies.
Yeah. So, actually, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Did you hear the story in the news? It was about a month ago about all of the restaurants in New York that forbid couples from coming in with their babies because people were disturbed by people coming into ritzy restaurants with their children and having them cry.
I don't think I heard that.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I mean, do we have a right to kick families out of a restaurant because they have loud-ass children?
To my mind, of course we do. Yeah. I mean, to my mind, restaurants, I think restaurants should be able to admit only the people they deem worthy. I mean, honestly, to me, it just bothers me none, Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, if there was a restaurant in town that didn't want me there, I might be pissed and offended, but I certainly wouldn't insist upon going there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, well, that's ridiculous. I demand to go here. You know what I mean? I'd be like, well, fuck you. I'm not going to go here. I don't understand. So, but yeah, I think it's completely reasonable. The restaurant is not the city hall,
Yeah.
A restaurant is not the public library or whatever.
Yeah, it's not essential to self-government.
Yeah. It's not, the restaurant's not a public park. You know what I mean? The restaurant is a private business that is owned by someone who more than likely isn't you, especially if you're a patron.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out. And the other thing too is like, what are we starving? I mean, are we, what is the argument in favor of that? Why shouldn't a restaurant be able to do that?
Well, I'm not sure that a restaurant shouldn't be able to do that. Someone
Sure.
doesn't have a constitutional right to bring their child to a place and have them cry. It's just, I don't know. I mean, I could see how it would be disturbing to a family, or even traumatizing to a family to be kicked out.
To be turned away?
Yeah. I guess the right to turn people away when they're already there sort of creates an element of public humiliation, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, excluding them in general and just not letting them into the restaurant.
Right.
That's different than letting them come in and saying, "Get the fuck out! Your kid's being too goddamn noisy."
Right.
And they're being embarrassed.
Right.
But at the same time, they're the ones who brought the crying child in there.
Well, and I think that honestly, man, and it's easy for me to say I don't have kids, whatever, but I think that a reasonable person sitting in a restaurant with a screaming baby should be embarrassed in the first place.
Yeah.
Not because their kid is doing something unhealthy or unnatural or not right, but this isn't the venue. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? One wouldn't bring, like, I happen to like, like, of course, I'm just recently revisiting my fandom of the band Europe, right?
Great band.
Great band, right? I like Europe, and I like the music kind of loud. Or just recently I listened to Portishead. I like Portishead music.
Yeah.
It's not reasonable for me to go to a restaurant with a fucking boombox and play Portishead music.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
At a volume that makes it, difficult for other people to talk or something like that.
But isn't that somewhat different?
Of course, it's somewhat different. Well, but no, I mean, it is somewhat different, but it's not altogether different because there are, there are behaviors. I'm talking about behaviors. I'm talking about. I'm not talking about. That I guess that's it. I'm not talking about taking away a baby's right to eat at a restaurant. I'm talking about regulating the behavior of an adult, and that's it. The behavior of the adult is, hey, my kid's crying, but I want to go eat,
Maine lobster.
Yeah, Maine lobster.
I want some Maine lobster.
And if other people don't like my crying baby, well, that's their problem. I mean, I knew a guy who is good class. It's funny because he and I didn't agree on every. I mean, actually, he's kind of, and we were antagonistic towards one another. But I'll tell you what, the guy knew he had my sense of manners in class for the most part, and he had a kid, and they went to a nice restaurant, and the kid started crying, and he was bummed because they couldn't pacify the kid, but they got up and left.
Yeah,
because to them, the idea of sitting and just making other people endure that.
Creating a nuisance.
To them, that was bad. Again, it's not the baby's fault. And in that sense, I think the baby is like the boombox in that the baby's just doing what a baby does, and the boombox is just doing what a boombox does. So, like, you're not, I'm not, it doesn't make radios or whatever they call sound machines nowadays.
Yeah.
It doesn't make that thing, there's nothing wrong with that device. It's just that the person who brought it is not using it appropriately or not observing, decent customs and manners.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's just a baby is sort of inherently connected to a person, and the baby kind of has to come. But that goes back to what you and I were talking about, is our right to go places.
Yeah, well, and I think, and I would debate you. I don't think a baby does have a right to, or
No. I'm saying people don't have. We talked about you don't necessarily have an inherent right to go to a restaurant and enjoy a meal.
No.
And a baby might, whatever. But anyways, I think it's different than a boombox, because a boombox is an inanimate, inhuman object.
Yes.
But you're right. Placing that nuisance into a public place, it's your common sense of manners. It's just, what if it's a single mom who has a kid and wants to go out and have a good time? I mean,
Right. Well, again, I challenge the idea that she's having a good time. By sitting at a restaurant with a crying baby. You know what I mean? However, I think you make a really good point. And I would say, and I'll be the asshole here, you know what I mean?
Feel free, man. You're the asshole all the time.
Why should this be any different?
Yeah. The status quo.
So, basically, let's pick up the, she's in this particular situation, and therefore, let's all suffer because, because of her situation. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So, which I'm saying, flippantly or whatever, but fuck her and her, you know what I mean? Maybe she shouldn't have the fucking kid.
Yeah.
Or maybe she shouldn't have picked the dad that she did. Now, if she's, if we're talking about some fucking war widow, and her kid with a back brace or something, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. Oh, I'm not unreasonable, and I'm not the guy that's going to complain either. Honestly, I mean, I've been around the crying baby. I'm not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to be so close that it's because it's a gut wrenching, fingernails on the chalkboard sound when the baby's really screaming.
Yeah.
It's biologically, we're biologically programmed to abhor that sound and do anything to prevent it.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, it's worse than a boombox. You know what I mean?
Depending on the music coming
Depending
from
on the music.
jukebox.
If it was the music from the gym, maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. Or perhaps the band Europe.
Well, it depends on what song. If we're talking about Danger on the Track, are we talking about Ninja? Ninja Survive.
The soundtrack to my life.
Oh, man. It just depends on which tune. Final Countdown, obviously. That's...
Yeah, but that's played out, man.
Well, it's played out, but it's like pouring liquid gold in your ears. It's so good. So, I mean, that's just an honor to hear that anywhere. But anyways, again, I'm not entirely sure that we should make, why is the single, the single mom with this supposed hardship or whatever. It's like we make a special case for her to, it's like, it's not like it's more valid for her to want to go to a fucking restaurant. I mean, because if you use this example, like a couple, happily married couple, again, I mean, they're either group, either the single mom or the happily married couple, to go to a restaurant without the kid would have to leave the kid with somebody. Mm-hmm. So it's like it isn't in that sense. I don't think it's that big of a distinction, but. Yeah,
I threw out the single mom because I want people to be sympathetic to her.
Yes.
People don't give a shit about married couples.
No, they don't. No, they do not. No, they do not.
Speaking of marriage, man, do you think...
you have something to ask me?
In Washington, I do.
Yes, I do. You want to get some weed?
Speaking of weed, man... there's been some recent changes in the Washington legislature about the amount that we will tax businesses that sell marijuana.
Yeah.
And I don't know, do you know about the distinction between the tax on a business selling marijuana dispensary as opposed to a mom and pop's train store? I mean, what is the different tax on the products sold?
Oh, that I do not know. That I absolutely don't know, although... And I don't know a ton about taxes, but I know that it's my understanding that the term gets used, sin tax. I know we tax booze and cigarettes at a much higher rate, I think, than we tax other things that are frankly less popular to tax. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, a high tax on Raisin Bran is going to be far less popular than a tax on cigarettes, which is this, minority kind of class of people that we don't care about. We don't have to fear their voting power.
Yeah.
And also, we can tax booze because, for one, people who want booze aren't going to stop buying it because the tax is too high. And the other thing is that people don't fight it because I think that there is kind of a little bit of a sense of shame. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to stand up too loud and bitch about taxing booze because society kind of says, well, why are you buying so much booze, man? What's, or whatever. That's kind of the, feeling.
Well, should we, what are your thoughts about legalizing marijuana then? I mean, like, is that a sin that should be taxed?
Well,
I know I'm throwing out the word sin as
right. No, I understand.
Just what you are.
No, and that's why I brought it up because I believe that. I mean, I have heard things to the effect that marijuana is being taxed at a greater rate or whatever, and I think that's exactly why. It's because it's one of those, fuck gambling smoking, drinking, whatever, or the bad things you have to pay more tax on because the government makes money on. Well, shit. I mean, the lottery used to be a mafia racket until it made too much money, and the government said, "Oh, we'll do that."
Yeah.
Yours is illegal. We'll do it. It's just sheer unadulterated profit. I mean, it's hilarious because the entire product is basically give us money. I mean, that's almost the entire product is just give us your money. You're not really getting anything, but you might. There's an incredibly unlikely chance that you'll get something amazing, but the overwhelming possibility you won't. So just give us your money, and we'll let you know if you won. But anyway, so marijuana is it? Yeah, tax the hell out of it by all means. It's not.
Would that create a disincentive for running marijuana dispensaries?
I hope so. I mean, frankly, I don't give a shit. I don't think that selling people weed is good or noble or valid. Honestly, I don't think. I mean, and everyone, of course, makes the case. It's far better than XYZ.
Yeah.
But I maintain that doesn't make something good. The fact that you can find things worse,
Yeah.
But also, I don't think what marijuana it does to people is good. I think that we have far too liberal ideas about it, and I'm not, whatever reefer madness or, what I mean? I'm not under some impression that, you smoke weed and you turn into a zombie or you eat your neighbor or something like that.
Or you go insane.
Yeah. I'm not, but what I do think, I think I know enough about it to know that lots of people smoke weed. They spend money that they should spend otherwise on it. And they use their life in a way that's less useful and valid than they could be doing otherwise. And also, I don't think it is, I mean, maybe I'm hypocritical. I'm kind of fueled by caffeine all day long. So maybe I'm being a hypocrite here, but I think that.
I don't think so.
I don't think that. I'm just,
Caffeine's different.
Well, but it's but there's plenty of people who smoke morning, noon, and night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I really think that getting up and going to work stoned, and you know what I mean. I have a tough time believing that you do your job as well stoned as you do sober.
Depends on the job.
It depends on the job. If your job is eating Fritos,
oh man, you're killing it.
Yeah, but I mean, no, really. I mean, if you're in construction or if you are in. Hell, if you're in sales, I don't know, what I mean? If you're, whatever you do, you know what I mean? You could make the argument it is pretty abstract, but then you make the argument that you're kind of stealing from your employer or you're stealing from, the general, gross national product or gross domestic product or something like that, by whatever. So anyways, I just don't think weed is good. And I don't think that the fact that stuff is worse makes weed good.
Well, yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, I think smoking marijuana makes you lazy. Drinking alcohol makes you irresponsible.
Oh, yeah,
smoking
dangerous.
Weed makes you, smoking weed makes you irresponsible. But I think that marijuana, the biggest problem with it is, like I said, it creates laziness and sort of a humdrum lifestyle where it's like you don't care about anything.
Yeah.
You don't get up. You get up in the morning and you smoke pot, and you're just sort of going through the motions. But at the same time, a lot of us get up every morning and we go through the motions.
Right.
But we do it in a, I don't want to say quote unquote, but we do it in a healthy way.
Right. No, and it's true, and it's. I mean, yeah, because there's a thing. Who's to say, right? Like, who's going to cast the first stone, so to speak, right? Because
certainly not me, man.
Because I don't live some ultra clean or necessarily ultra productive lifestyle or whatever. I will say this: I think it would be a lot worse if I was a stoner.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I live a life that is better and more productive. Sans ganja. Yeah. That's my feeling on it, and it's just one of the many things where it's like, man, that's not really cool, or the argument against it is like, dude, chill out, I mean, yeah. I mean, and there's your rare exceptions, but there's a lot of stoners that are just really unhappy people, and I can't help but feel that if they would stop doing this mind-altering drug, they would be happier, and it's like, I mean, anyone who is depressed or unhappy, who makes a daily habit of doing a mood-altering drug, it's hard to say. It's hard to make the argument that you're really doing what's right for yourself.
Sure. Sure.
And I'm thinking of a gal I knew who, she was stupid, but she said something.
Probably an idiot.
She was. Yeah. She told me one time that her doctor told her to smoke weed. Okay. And I said, did he really do, she said, yeah. And it was her psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. And I said, he really said that to you? And then I delved a little bit. I says, what were, in what context? Yeah. And it came to pass that she told him that when she didn't smoke weed, she felt suicidal. Oh. And it's like, okay, bitch, that's not the same as having a doctor tell you to smoke weed. When you tell a doctor, if I don't smoke weed, I feel like killing myself, and he says, okay, well, continue to smoke weed then. Yeah. He's not giving you a prescription.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah.
He's not making a recommendation that what is good for you is weed. Yeah. He's saying, well, we certainly don't want you to kill yourself.
Preserving your life.
So to save your life, do whatever is necessary. Whatever. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Goddamn Hippocratic oath, man.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on the oath.
No, boy.
Yeah.
Which oath? The Hippocratic?
The Hippocratic oath.
Oh man, that's a doozy of an oath.
Or perhaps the oath to be wed.
Well, that's
the wedding oath.
Whole different oath.
Yeah. That's oath cut from a different cloth.
Yes.
Wow. Now, it's actually going back to let's talk about the oath for a minute. Let's talk about marriage. And I'm not talking about gay marriage. I'm talking about just the idea of marriage in general. Do we get married because we intrinsically find the person we love, or because that is just what we're trained to do, to be normal in society?
Man, we get married because we're stupid and we think that you're supposed to be married by a certain age, and that's, and we also think that you get to know someone, you like them, and the next step is to get married and have kids or whatever. You know what I mean? The majority of people that get married because they don't know, because what the hell, and they get divorced because they're not happy anymore. So I actually have a complete and total answer for this.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I understand marriage now. I didn't used to understand marriage. I'm not married, but that doesn't disqualify me in this case because I understand what it's about. Because I really used to not understand what is the point of marriage. You know what I mean? There's people who say, "Oh, it's only a piece of paper," and you know what I mean. And of course, there's plenty of folks who get married in churches that aren't God-fearing people. You know what I mean? They know it's not like they ever go to church any other time. That kind of thing. I understand marriage today in a way that I didn't, before for a long time. I figured it out, and that is marriage. Marriage, when correctly used or whatever, is the old idea of marriage. It is a contract that you enter into with another person.
Yeah.
It's a partnership that you enter into essentially and say, listen, you and I are going to be teammates, and, you and I are electing to tackle life together. We are going to look at and it's funny because it's hidden in plain sight, right? But because then you go and you take the oath, right? And you say, yes, depending on your beliefs, you basically assemble your friends, your family, and God so that they can witness what's going on. Because you want everyone to know, and you want it to be on the record. In fact, it literally is on the record. You go down and get a marriage license and whatever. And so you go say, I promise that I'm going to be with you forever until we die. The whole time. And then you say, sickness and health, richer or poorer, better or worse. All the marriage vows one hears, kind of circles around that, unless they're completely idiotic, right? That's what it's about. It's not about, I promise to never stop finding you attractive. I promise to never upset you. I promise to never, have, outrageous fits of jealousy or, all this shit that's basically guaranteed when you enter into a relationship, a long-term relationship. I mean, invariably, you're going to run into all kinds of fucking hell on earth. You know what I mean? She's going to talk about how funny some guy is at work, and you're going to fucking get pissed about it. And then when,
fit of jealous rage.
You know what I mean? You're going to, she's going to fucking insult your manhood, or you're going to fucking not have sex with her, and she's going to be hurt about it and cry. You know what I mean? Like, all kinds of horrible things are going to happen to you because marriage is, because it's an unrealistic expectation to be happy. What marriage is to say, listen, I'm going to stay with you even though we're going to have all kinds of fucking problems. I promise, I swear to God, I'm going to stay with you through all of that. And she says, or whatever, I'm going to stay with you as well, even though we're going to have all this fucking problems and da-da-da-da-da. And so what happens is that you guys just say, thick and thin, no matter what, we're together. And what's supposed to happen then is that you're a man or a woman of your word. You keep your vow in front of friends, family, and God. And when shit comes up, you have no choice but to look for solutions. You can say we can just go on being miserable and married, or we can look for a solution. But what happens today is that people say, well, let's see, we got this problem. Do I want to leave the marriage? Do I want to, you know what I mean? And as soon as that option's on the table, eventually it becomes more attractive than staying together.
Sure.
But if it's not off the table, you know what I mean? It's like if, you know what I mean? Like you got a crying baby, and what the guy got in trouble for sticking a baby in the fucking fridge, and the baby died, right? I don't think it was his kid, but
as
anyway,
the kids say, cray cray.
Cray, man. But it's like almost any normal human being who has a baby, even if it's not theirs, isn't going to kill it or neglect it or hurt it or duct tape its mouth, whatever. You know what I mean? So you have to address this screaming baby. Because the alternative, like throwing the baby over the fence or in a dumpster, is just not an option that's on the table, and so you don't, you know what I mean? You look for whatever options that are on the table. And
you work through it because you have a contract.
It's just a totally, utterly implied contract that this small little life form can't defend itself, and you're responsible to do so. And that's exactly why we should get married. And people who know that are people who know that know the truth, whether or not it makes them happy or it applies in their situation.
Well, I mean, I think though that it's possible for people to be happy in marriage. I mean, if you agree, that it's possible.
Oh, of course. No, and it's not all misery by any stretch of imagination. I mean, that's why you pick a person. Otherwise, you just pick whoever came along, right? No.
Yeah. Well, speaking of people who come along, what about online dating? I mean, aren't there people out there? In the online ether, the internet ether, that we would actually be closer with.
Ethernet, if you will.
Good one. People out there online that we can become compatible with because Match.com tells us that we are compatible with them. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've done online dating before,
right?
And I've met some hags online. Met some horrible toothless hags.
Well,
online.
the obvious glitch of online dating is that you are essentially dealing with single people.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of you got basically your people that don't already have dance partners. You know what I mean? So that's a factor, right? And it's, ironically, the people that aren't with someone, you can say, well, what's wrong with them? They're not with anybody. And then, of course, the people that are with someone, you say, well, I'll tell you what's wrong with them. They've got somebody. So by that metric, we'll never meet anybody ever because because everyone's either unqualified or taken, I guess. But of course, that's nonsense. And what you really kind of hope for is you get a good one in between relationships or whatever, or the fantasy of like the girl that nobody else. I mean, I had that one, like the girl that once or twice in school. It was like the new girl at school. That was really pretty, but nobody caught on because everyone had this kind of herd mentality. And it was like the popular kids didn't say she was pretty. So everyone was afraid to admit that she was or something like that, Anyhow, well, I ran into one of them. She was a doctor.
Yeah.
This gal I dated
She's a
for
doctor now.
Oh yeah, well, she was a doctor 10 years ago.
Oh
but,
yeah.
But it was fine. I ran into her at the Taste of Tacoma. Actually.
Oh man.
She goes, Jeff, and I looked back and I says, yeah, and I thought to myself, I don't really recognize,
Yeah.
It's me, and I talked to her for a second. I'm a doctor, and at the time I had a really good-looking girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, fuck, I
Bonus.
don't care. No, it's like
Yeah.
like, hey, I don't care. It's like, hey, I didn't miss out on anything. Look at this fucking hot chick I have, barista girlfriend I have now.
Yeah.
But anyway,
You lost out on the money.
yeah.
That's the thing.
You can learn to love the rich ones.
Yeah.
But you were saying,
Just back to online dating for a moment, because I think it's interesting. If you go on there, you have your profile, and there's income, and some people say no preference. Some people say I want someone making six figures and above.
right?
And the whole cookie cutter idea behind dating, the way that it's lined up, isn't that artificial? Isn't it? Doesn't it turn us into? I don't want to sound like a pothead.
Cattle, man.
Yeah, man, we're like mental slaves. God, I love that phrase, mental slavery. Anyways, it seems wrong almost. It seems wrong that we are relegated to dealing at each other with arm's length when we can't look at each other in the face. It's sort of like texting. You can't really
Well,
hear
there's that, yes.
Yeah, can't hear the tone of someone's voice. You can't have a real conversation with someone.
Right.
You can't go out in public and meet someone. It's
I know.
sort of like you.
My mom
create
sent me a text that "fuck you, faggot," and I was like, you know what? I couldn't tell if she was being like aggressive or not because I couldn't hear the tone of her voice. But anyways,
yeah, I get those texts.
text,
all the time.
you get them from my mom too.
Yeah. She hates on me.
You little son of a bitch.
Oh, she calls me a cocksucker.
Yeah, I know. She's
I'm
got a
sitting there
temper on her, boy.
I mean,
tell you what.
I can't tell if she's just going, fucking cocksucker,
Right,
or
or
she's
if
like,
she's like,
Eric, you are such a cocksucker.
fucking cock all the time, buddy.
For those of you listening at home, those are two different expressions of emotion. What I just did there was that I blew your mind.
Just like that explosion sound.
Explosions of joy.
Yes.
That might be a good name for this podcast.
Explosions of joy. It's got a very ejaculatory sound to it. The online date, speaking of ejaculatory,
Yeah.
the online dating, the good news about online dating is that you can put a picture of yourself on there, whatever, and then, chicks see it and say, I would never go out with someone that looks like that. And you're saved from
Streamlined.
You're streamlined. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Where I feel like I'm a more attractive person than I look. Honestly, I mean, I kind of think that my strength is in my personality, not my.
Yeah, dude, you have the sexiest brain on the planet.
That's right. I want a woman to love me for my mind. But you know what I'm saying. So it's kind of a bummer because there have been cases where I, have been able to land myself some chicks that wouldn't have picked me if they didn't know what kind of person I was or whatever. But fucking hey, that goes with the territory, right? It's like I'm also not interested in a bunch of fat chicks who I'm sure are cool, awesome people, but it's just whatever. I'm not doesn't do it for me. Doesn't give me one a cat couldn't scratch.
Yeah. No, man. I had a profile picture many years ago. I had a profile picture. It was just a thumbs down. It wasn't my face. It was a thumbs down. It just said no fatties.
Yeah.
Across.
Really?
Yeah.
I've
no
done
fatties.
that. I'm not that, but I mean, I've done
Believe it
similar.
or not, I didn't get any requests from fatties. I was surprised.
Well, I'm sure you didn't because, of course, they thought this guy's such an asshole. If I send him a thing, he'll hurt my feelings really bad. Probably.
I'm cold on them hoes.
Well, I think we all know that.
Yeah.
But also, seriously, like I actually, I think of myself as being politically conservative, which I certainly didn't start that way, but and I can be with and be very happy with someone who is liberal, particularly if they are, is open to reason, as at least I think I am. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know what I mean? But it's just I'm way past the point where I can be with someone who thinks that you know, I can't be with someone who thinks that religious organizations within this country are, you know, promoting hatred or you know, or anything that, you know, so juvenile or whatever. Like, I can't be with people that are just are that antagonistic.
Do you think you just don't like you don't like it when you're around someone that disagrees with you, or are you just passive? Is it just your passive nature?
Well, I don't mind at all being around people who disagree with me if they can argue about it reasonably enough or detached without being, you know, real hostile or angry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean, I enjoy it. I'd be bored, you know, never talking about what we call politics, social
issues.
Yeah, issues.
The issues.
The issues. But I mean, shit, man, I dated a gal who, I mean, and it's not fair to call her liberal, but she was, you know what I mean? But I mean, she just really, she thought that, you know, fat white Republican men were responsible for all the ills of the world. Now that's a prejudiced point of view. It's also a ludicrous point of view. And, you know, she talked about, you know, anyone who thinks that starvation in this country is a serious issue, you know, it's just like
they're out of their minds.
Well, I think
they are.
so.
No, they are.
I mean, like, you're just not. No, people don't starve. I mean, it's not impossible to happen. I mean, of course, it's impossible, but it's the cases of like child abuse or such severe drug addiction, whatever. I mean, it's just that's not. People aren't just on the streets going hungry because we're not growing enough food or anything like that. None of that's a reality.
We're not walking over dead people in the streets
that
have died of starvation.
We are certainly not. No,
and that happens in India.
Oh, yeah. No, it happens in places where there's not enough food for the fucking people. Yeah. This isn't one of those places. And if you think that it is, and if you think that it's the Republican Party's fault, you're just out of your goddamn mind. I mean, it's not, I can't be in a relationship with somebody like that.
Yeah.
You know, you're insane.
Nor could I.
Yeah.
Nor could I.
You know, by that, you know, at the same time, I couldn't be, you know, in a relationship with somebody who, you know, listened to Rush Limbaugh and treated it like gospel or something like that. I mean, I'm not this generic party line, whatever. But I don't know. That's my. But what's interesting to me, I mean, you can filter for girls who describe themselves as being conservative.
Yeah, you're talking about online dating again.
Yeah.
You can go through that.
You know what I mean?
Or determine what they're thinking just based on their profile.
Or you can, and like I did, it's kind of like it asked me, "What are you looking for in a date?"
Yeah.
And I answered it, and then the section that it went into is titled differently than the question they asked. Like it says like something about me, something about you, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell if I'm, anyways. But that's different. But I made a couple points. I says, "Listen, I don't want you to be, you know, interested in hiking mountains in third world countries or something like that."
Yeah.
Because it's just not my bag, and if that's your, you know, one of your aspirations or something that you want to do and want to do repeatedly, it's going to be contentious between us.
Yeah.
You know, another thing is that I am a monotheist. I believe that there is a God, and I made a comment to the effect that you can't be antagonistic to that. A person can't, you know, I can't be with somebody. I can be with an agnostic person. I can be with. I think I could be with a few different kinds of religious people, you know. I think I could be with an atheist, you know, truthfully.
If they weren't aggressively atheists.
Yeah, if it wasn't like an insult to them that someone, you know what I mean? Like, like, you know, like YouTube atheists who like are out to convert the world.
Yeah.
You know, like somebody like, you know, on YouTube, man, somebody can, here's my church choir singing, and there'll be a comment in the comment section. Yeah, too bad there's no God. You know, like, it's like whatever. I mean, I don't need anybody in my life who's antagonistic towards my beliefs.
Yeah, I think atheists proselytize just as much as a religious person.
In this day and age, in my experience, more.
Really, more?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
It depends. I guess it depends upon the belief system, but I mean,
naturally.
And you know what? One thing you've hit the nail on the butt though is that, it may be true that atheists proselytize more because it's more underground. I mean, you don't see two atheists in white shirts, white-collared shirts and black pants riding around on bicycles like you do Mormons.
Yeah, although you see them, I mean, hell, man. I mean, there are organizations on college campuses now and that kind of. I mean, it isn't. I think I heard Christopher Hitchens talk about it. I mean, it's although this technically a majority of Americans, check a box that say they're religious or even that they're Christian, but they're not. You know what I mean? They're overwhelming. There's an incredibly large group of people who don't act in any way as if there's a God. Like they don't. They clearly don't really think there's a heaven. They clearly don't really think that. I mean, they. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of maybe ludicrous. If you told them, "Hey, Jesus is coming back soon," they would give you a blank stare or just think you're crazy. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, they're not scholars of the Bible by any stretch. They're just people that's Mama was and Daddy was and Grandma and you know what I mean.
They just have an inherent belief.
Well, and I don't think it's an actual belief in the terms of I don't think that they think it's true. I don't think people believe Jesus walked on water and that kind of thing. A lot of the people who call themselves Christians, I don't think they do.
Yeah.
So in that sense, atheists, you know what I mean? Like some of them really fancy themselves as some oppressed minority, but it's insanity. I mean, I didn't pray in school, and I went to school 20 years ago,
Yeah. Well, I think atheists, they're the ones with the chips on their shoulder, sure. I have a hard time believing that they are the ones going out there crusading for their beliefs as much or more than other religions like
Mormons
or Christians in general.
Well, yeah, I mean, Christians in general is a big group.
Yeah,
but Mormons are very young religion, and they're very proselytizing and missions are just this. They essentially have a practice of conscription where everyone does 2 years. Every male does 2 years.
Dude, very quickly. Speaking of missions, I would become a Mormon for a couple years just to go on a mission so I can meet my banging wife.
Yeah.
It seems like every Mormon I know has come back from their mission with a wife.
Yes.
And sometimes they look like toothless hags, and other times they look great.
Mostly they look great.
Yeah. Anyway, but
there's good. Mormons. Well, for one thing, man, Mormons are to a large degree. I mean, they're a genetic community because they're a genetic entity of themselves. Because they, they practice polygamy, and there was, and it was such a short time ago that they began. Whatever 100
the gene
pool years
hasn't been scattered.
No, it hasn't. It really hasn't. It really hasn't. I mean, they're the people that were. They're the people that were the Utah settlers, whatever group that is, like Germans or whatever they were. Christ, you turn on a Brigham Young University football game, and you're going to see all the last names on the jerseys that you knew in high school. You know what I mean? Because they're just that genetically they're and they're just happen to be a really good looking genetic group of people.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I just want to say, anybody that's out there in the beautiful world we're living